Turning setbacks into superpowers sounds exciting, right? But let me ask you something straight from the heart. Have you ever looked at yourself and thought, why am I like this? Why do I have this limitation? Why don't I fit in like everyone else? Maybe you've even wondered if God made a mistake with you, like there's something missing or something wrong. But what if the thing you think is a weakness is actually the thing that God plans to turn into your strength? What if the part of you that feels different, unusual, unseen, or underestimated, is actually the part God wants to use to change your life, maybe even change the lives of others? Today we're stepping inside one of the most surprising, inspiring, and cleverly designed moments in the entire Bible. A story that shows us that God doesn't need perfect people, He just needs willing ones. This is the animated story of Ehud, a man whose disadvantage turned into the exact superpower that saved a nation. And by the time we reach the end of this journey, I promise, you're not going to see your weaknesses the same way again. Let's step back in time, into the land of Israel. Dusty roads, ancient villages, quiet hillsides, and a people who had once lived with strength, joy, and purpose. But something changed. Over time, their hearts drifted. They got comfortable. They forgot to stay close to God. And every single time they drifted, something painful happened. They lost their protection. Their enemies gained the upper hand. This time, it wasn't just any enemy, it was King Eglon of Moab, a man known for cruelty and harsh rule. For 18 long years, the Israelites lived under his domination. 18 years of paying heavy taxes. 18 years of having their land controlled. 18 years of feeling like their best days were gone. Imagine the animation showing people walking slowly with heavy baskets, soldiers watching from towers, children asking their parents why life has become so difficult. The atmosphere is dark. The hope feels thin. But something beautiful happens whenever people cry out to God. He hears. He always hears. And after years of suffering, Israel finally looks up and says, God, we can't do this without you. Help us. And when God hears you cry, He doesn't look for the strongest person, or the tallest person, or the loudest person. He looks for the one who makes themselves available. And this time, God chooses a man named Ehud. Now, Ehud wasn't the kind of hero people expected. He wasn't a massive warrior with a gigantic sword. He wasn't the kind of man crowds would cheer for. The Bible describes him as left-handed. And that might sound normal to us today, but back then, being left-handed wasn't celebrated. It was seen as strange, awkward, and even weak. Warriors trained with their right hand. Weapons were made for right-hand use. Being left-handed meant you didn't fit the design of the world around you. Let me pause here for a moment. Isn't that how many of us feel sometimes? Like everyone else fits into the shape of the world, but you don't. Like the things about you that make you different make life harder. But Ehud's difference wasn't a problem. It was a weapon God was about to use. Picture him appearing in the animation, calm, quiet, determined. The Israelites needed to send a tribute, a payment of goods, to King Eglon. It was humiliating, but it had to be done. And Ehud is chosen to lead the group carrying the tribute. But what no one knew except Ehud and God was that something else was going on. Before leaving, Ehud crafted a small double-edged dagger, sharp and slim, designed to be hidden. But here's the genius part, because he was left-handed, he strapped this dagger on his right thigh, not his left like all right-handed soldiers would. And the guards who searched people entering the palace? They were only trained to check the normal side. Do you see the miracle here? The thing people thought made Ehud weak became the thing that made him invisible to the enemy. So imagine the scene. Ehud walks with his group, the tribute boxes are carried forward, the guards check the men, checking their left sides for weapons, not even thinking to look at Ehud's right side. He passes right through. It's a beautiful reminder that when God calls you to something, even your weaknesses will be turned into divine strategy. Now picture the moment inside the palace: towering walls, polished floors, decorated halls. King Eglon sits on his throne, large and imposing, surrounded by servants. The tribute is placed before him: baskets of grain, jars of oil, goods gathered from the hard work of the Israelites. The ceremony ends. The delegates bow. They begin to leave. But Ehud pauses. He feels the weight in his spirit. He feels God nudging him. And right there, he makes a decision that will change everything. He returns to the king and says, "I have a secret message for you, O king." Kings love secrets. Love feeling special. Love hearing things others can't hear. So Eglon sends all his servants away. The room empties. Silence fills the chamber. The animation zooms in on Ehud's steady eyes and the king's curious expression. Ehud steps forward. He leans in slightly. And he says words that carry heavenly weight: "I have a message from God for you." What a moment! The king rises. And in that split second, the animation freezes briefly, showing Ehud's left hand reaching toward his right thigh, something no guard ever anticipated. One swift motion. The dagger flashes. The king falls. The mission God designed from the beginning is fulfilled. And Ehud stands there not as a man defined by weakness, but as a man who allowed God to turn his difference into deliverance. After locking the room behind him so the guards won't immediately discover anything, Ehud slips out of the palace calmly, blending with the people, walking away with purpose. No rushing. No panic. Just confidence in God. He reaches the hills of Ephraim, lifts a trumpet, and blows a powerful, echoing blast that travels across the land. The Israelites hear it. And something wakes up inside them. Courage returns. Hope rises. Strength flows back into their hearts. Ehud leads them into battle, not as a man known for weakness, but as a leader chosen by God. And with God's help, Israel defeats the Moabites and finally breaks free after nearly 2 decades of suffering. The land enjoys peace for years. All because one man decided to trust God with what made him different. Now let's slow down and talk to each other heart to heart. Have you ever felt like Ehud? Maybe you feel like you don't fit the mold. Maybe people have pointed out your differences, your struggles, your insecurities. Maybe there's something about yourself you've always tried to hide: your personality, your past, your challenges, your fears, your way of thinking. But what if those very things were intentionally placed in you by God? What if the thing you've always wished you could change is the thing God wants to use to change others? Think about this: if Ehud had been right-handed, this whole story would fall apart. He would have been searched. The plan would have failed. Israel might have stayed oppressed. So what the world calls weakness, God calls design. You may not see it now. It might feel confusing in the moment. You might think, why can't I just be like everyone else? But God isn't interested in making duplicates. He's interested in making destiny. And your destiny requires you to be exactly who He created you to be. Ehud didn't need to be stronger. He didn't need to be famous. He didn't need the approval of the world. He just needed to be willing. And so do you. Let me paint another scene in your imagination: Ehud as a little boy. Kids training with their right hands. Teachers telling him to correct his grip. People laughing, saying, "Why are you doing it like that?" Maybe he felt embarrassed. Maybe he felt slow or different. He didn't know that years later, that same awkwardness would become the key to a nation's freedom. This is the heart of today's message: what feels like a setback right now might be the exact thing God uses to lift you forward later. So I want to talk directly to you. Don't hide your difference. Don't bury your unique gifts. Don't be ashamed of the things that make you you. Every scar, every struggle, every quality, every story, God can turn all of it into your superpower. There are people only you can reach. There are moments only you can fulfill. There is a purpose that fits you so perfectly that no one else could walk into it. The same God who used Ehud's left hand can use whatever you have, whatever you are, whatever you bring. Imagine the animation closing with Ehud standing on a mountaintop, the people celebrating below, the sun rising behind him, the wind carrying sounds of freedom through the valley. He looks peaceful, steady, not because he was the strongest man in Israel, but because he trusted the God who sees beyond weaknesses. And that's where your story begins. Not when everything is fixed. Not when you become perfect. Not when all your insecurities disappear. Your story begins when you say, God, use me as I am. God used a shepherd boy with a sling. God used a timid man hiding in a wine press. God used a young girl named Mary who had nothing but obedience. God used a man who couldn't speak well. And God used a left-handed man named Ehud. And if he used them, he can use you. You don't need to be stronger. You don't need to be more talented. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. God sees something in you right now, even in the parts you dislike. And he can turn every piece of your story into something powerful, beautiful, and victorious. Just like he did for Ehud. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine God looking at you the same way he looked at Ehud. Not with disappointment. Not with frustration. But with purpose. With intention. With love. With a plan already forming in his hands. A plan that includes your flaws, your gifts, your personality, your quirks, your challenges, everything. Because nothing about you is a mistake. And nothing about you is wasted. And now, as we bring this story to its gentle but powerful close, I want you to carry one truth deep in your heart: your difference is your destiny. The thing you think makes you weak might be the very thing God will use to make you strong. And this is where the story of Ehud gently settles into our hearts, reminding us of something we often forget. God never chooses us because we are flawless. He chooses us because we are willing. The world might look at your weaknesses and see limits, but God looks at those same weaknesses and sees doors only you can walk through. What people call flaws, God calls design. What feels like a setback to you might be the very place where heaven has hidden your future strength. So as this journey ends, carry this truth with you: your difference is not a mistake, your limitation is not a barrier, and your past is not a disqualification. In God's hands, everything about you can become a superpower. Just like Ehud, you were created with a purpose that perfectly fits who you are. Trust that purpose, walk with courage, and let God turn every part of your story into something powerful, something beautiful, and something that will change your world.